Hello, we are back again. It is now day 12. We are still on week 2, working on SMART goals. Today we're focusing on our fourth pillar, which is avoiding risky substances. And just like the previous couple of days, we're going to start by taking a look at an article, and then we'll break it down and give some examples of SMART goals. So we're going to take a look at two different articles here. One's listed on the left and one's on the right. The first article is titled Amounts of Artificial Food Colors in Commonly Consumed Beverages and Potential Behavioral Implications for Consumption in Children. So this was an article written in 2014. And this is just going to take a look at one of the risky substances that we don't typically think about. We typically think about the big ones like alcohol and tobacco, but this one is going to take a look at food coloring in our diet. So this one states that yellow number 5 and number 6, as well as red number 3 and number 40 and blue number 1, while they play a role in ADHD, they are commonly found in foods that are highly processed and laden with sugar, refined carbohydrates, and caffeine, all of which have been shown to play a role in symptoms of ADHD. So basically, this is stating that there are certain food dyes that are predominantly in highly processed foods that are also full of sugar and simple carbs and caffeine, that these dyes themselves have been directly linked to ADHD in children, but also the foods that they're commonly found in, such as sodas and sugars and candies and chips, are also linked to these symptoms of ADHD. So, again, a risky substance we don't think about too much, but we do have control over the types of foods that we eat, and these food dyes can pose potential health risks, especially in children. The second article on the right-hand side of the page is titled Alcohol Consumption and Sleep Quality, a Community-Based Study. So this is taking a look at the association between alcohol and sleep. And one of the main findings of this paper was that alcohol was associated with higher odds of having short sleep duration. And there's a bunch of numbers here. So these are looking at something called the odds ratio of heavy versus non-drinkers. And this odds ratio is 1.31, which corresponds with a 95% confidence interval that does not include 1. It is 1.09 to 1.57. So basically what this means is it is statistically significant within the scientific sphere. So it's showing that heavy drinking results in shorter sleep duration. Also, snoring. So again, we see a bunch of different numbers with our confidence interval not including the number 1. So this means it is also statistically significant in the world of science, showing that significant alcohol consumption both decreases your sleep duration and increases your chances of snoring, which is also linked to hypertension and poor sleep quality. So again, we don't always think about alcohol necessarily affecting our sleep quality. We think about alcohol in relation to our liver function and in relation to our cardiovascular health, but our sleep quality is also affected by alcohol consumption. So just a couple of things to think about as we set some goals here now regarding risky substances. So our first example, specific, limit alcohol intake to 1 drink per day for women or 2 for men. So this is like the standard number of drinks per day definition. So we typically want you to aim for less than this, but this is kind of where the guideline sits. Anything more than 1 drink per day for women and 2 drinks per day for men is considered excessive drinking, so we want to limit to those guidelines. Measurable, we can log our alcohol consumption daily, we can use our phone, we can use a piece of paper. Achievable. Right now, there's kind of a craze or a fad about non-alcoholic beverages. So even beer companies are creating non-alcoholic beers, but also using sparkling water or mixing juices trying to steer clear of the excessive sugar, but with our goal of reducing our alcohol intake, we can try and replace those drinks with non-alcoholic beverages. And then relevant. We know that alcohol plays a role in cardiovascular and liver disease, but also, as we learned on the last page, with our sleep quality as well. And we can give this a try for 12 weeks, or however long we think we are capable of doing this. Example number 2, eliminating consumption of foods containing artificial food dyes. So this one might be a little bit harder because there's food dyes hidden in a lot of stuff that we consume daily, and that's why this concept of whole foods is really important and really one of the pinnacles of lifestyle medicine, because when something comes in its natural packaging, such as a peel or a rind or something along those lines, we know for a fact there's been no artificial food dyes put into it. But when something comes in a plastic package and it's been processed, there's a really, really good chance that there's some artificial food dyes in there. So to make this measurable, we can track the number of food items consumed per week that contain artificial food dyes. We can save the wrappers, set them aside, and at the end of the week count them, or count them as we go. And achievable. So ingredient labels are super helpful because they do tend to list out food dyes in the ingredient list. But like I said, if it comes in its own natural packaging, such as an apple coming in its own peel or an orange coming in its own peel as well, we know for a fact that there's no food dyes in it. So you don't even have to check labels if there is no label to be found, such as on Whole Foods. Relevant. This is to improve our overall dietary quality, but we also looked at how food dyes, specifically in kids, can be linked to symptoms of ADHD or hyperactivity. And then we can, again, set this to a time-bound criteria, and we can try to successfully maintain a dye-free diet for about 8 weeks. We can give it a go for 1 week. We can give it a go for a day. Just anything that you're willing to try. I think this is a really good one. And again, it's not the risky substance that we typically think about. Tobacco being one of the big ones, alcohol being one of the big ones, but there are some hidden risky substances that we face in our daily life. Sugar is considered a risky substance. Foods that are high in saturated fats are considered risky substances. Even risky behaviors such as driving our car without a seatbelt on or riding a bike without a helmet, those are considered risky environments to be in. So if we can try and pick something in our lives that we would be willing to eliminate or limit, I think that would be really helpful for these goals. Tomorrow, we're going to be taking a look at the next pillar of lifestyle medicine, which is sleep. And we already saw today that alcohol plays a role in our sleep, but we're going to take a look at some other factors that play a role in sleep as well. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. I will see you tomorrow.